All right, we are back here rolling on in our March Madness podcast special. Joining me today, the editor of college sports coverage over at FanSided, Patrick Schmidt is here. Patrick, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, good to talk to you again. Remember last year we were supposed to do is we had to talk about how the March Madness is canceled. Now a year later we have brackets in our hands again. It feels nice.
Yeah, it feels great. I mean, last year was such a, everything. I think the emotion kind of speaks for itself there. But yeah, I was excited to get to Selection Sunday. Had a couple of reminders of how tenuous the situation is with Duke and Kansas and Virginia having to pull out of their conference tournaments, but we made it. A couple more days away until the tournament kicks off in earnest, and now I'm excited for the full weekends again and filling out brackets and all of the madness that comes with March. So I'm pumped.
Yeah, I'm pumped too. It's also a very different NCAA tournament because you look at the bracket, Duke's not there, Kentucky's not there, Michigan State's down at the bottom, Carolina's down at the bottom. A lot of the blue bloods are missing. I think it's going to make it very interesting.
Yeah, first time since 1976 that Duke and Kentucky are not in the tournament. So, I mean, that's a very long time. So, it's going to be a different field, different vibe. But, once you start getting into it, the ball tips, you still got the excitement that comes with March, the buzzer beaters, the Cinderella stories, the underdogs. A lot of these players that, maybe they're getting attention, in their own state, their own campus, within their own conference. But I'm excited for some of these players to get the national stage. I mean, Cade Cunningham might be the number one pick in the NBA draft out of Oklahoma State. And I really don't know how many people, have seen him outside of the diehard college basketball fans. So he's not quite like a Zion Williamson phenomenon, but an all-around great talent. And like you said, those notorious power players in college basketball are gone. Still got Gonzaga. Illinois, Michigan, Ohio State, some of these, Alabama, you see these schools and they're like, oh, hey, is this the college football playoff? A lot of football powers, but it's going to be a great opportunity. Some great coaches, great programs, great players are going to get some much needed attention. Should be a fun 3 to 4 weeks ahead of us.
Yeah, I think it's been a lot of fun watching this whole season play out. And I think also I give some props to selection make. Obviously, they made a few decisions I don't agree with. Obviously, Syracuse being in the field entirely, not even being the first four is one of them. I think on the whole, they did a pretty good job. What do you think about what they did this year?
Yeah, really no huge complaints. I'd probably agree with you there. With Syracuse, I thought they'd really be sweating Selection Sunday, and, they really didn't have to sweat it out at all. If anything, I thought, maybe you flip-flop Michigan State with Syracuse. I thought Michigan State, certainly not a great year, especially by their standards, but some really great signature wins for them in the Big Ten, best conference in the nation this year, 9 NCAA tournament teams. And they had some COVID issues during the middle of the season that really kind of hurt them, kind of set them back. But I thought they regrouped enough to kind of get off that first four line. But, outside of that, I thought the top of the bracket, the one seeds, those are pretty much set in stone even before the conference tournaments got underway, unless Illinois got upset in the first round or something like that of their conference tournament. But, I thought Oklahoma State was underseeded a bit. I think they're an Elite Eight caliber team. I talked about Cade Cunningham, guys, one of the best players in the nation. So I thought they could have been on that 3 line, Big 12, right behind the Big 10, in terms of conference supremacy this year. So, by and large, I thought the committee did a great job filling out the brackets, but when you're ranking 68 teams here, you're bound to have a few that raise a few eyebrows. Michigan State, Syracuse, Oklahoma State were just a few that were a little puzzling for me.
Yeah, most part pretty good. I think the interesting thing, though, going into this tournament is that we have an undefeated team in Gonzaga, which is probably the best Bulldog team Mark Few's ever had, an elite offensive team. It sort of feels like one of those years to me where it's like, okay, do you pick Gonzaga or you take the field to win the thing? The last time I really think they felt that way was the Kentucky team that entered undefeated. They ended up losing the Final Four. Do you think this is one of those Gonzaga or the field years?
Kind of. I haven't filled out my bracket yet. I've filled it out mentally. But yeah, Gonzaga is by and large the best team in the country. I don't think they're infallible. I don't think they're quite to the level that Anthony Davis Kentucky team was. But I do think this is the best Gonzaga team that Mark Few has had. Corey Kispert, Drew Timme, Jalen Suggs. Jalen Suggs, he's not the typical Gonzaga recruit. This guy could have gone, Duke, Kentucky, anywhere he wanted, and it goes to Gonzaga. So they have the athletic profile that's, much more elevated. They're not just like that, gritty underdog story that they used to be, 5, 10, 15 years ago. So I don't necessarily want to say it's Gonzaga or the field. They're the favorite. I think, they're probably going to be the champion on most people's brackets. But, Baylor could win it all. Illinois could win it all. Up until the Livers injury, I thought Michigan could win it all. I thought Oklahoma State could win it all. Ohio State is good. There's a lot of really, really good teams and some great teams. But, Gonzaga, they're the best of the bunch. And, probably they're going to be my team to cut down the nets. But, boy, that Kentucky team, that's an all-timer.
Yeah, it really is. I also want to talk about some of the other challenges. You mentioned Baylor, obviously coming out of the Big 12. They brought back pretty much everybody from last year. That team was undefeated for a long time. They lose to Kansas. They lose the conference tournament to Oklahoma State. But I think the thing that's scary about this Baylor team is just how deep they are. They really throw 10 guys to you and have all of them be quality players. I think Baylor is a team I feel like is not getting enough attention for how good they really are.
Yeah, Baylor is a great team. We talk about non-traditional powers and, Scott Drew, what he's done at Baylor, he's not recruiting the one and dones like Duke and Kentucky and some of these other, elite programs are. And, they could just pluck and choose the top 10 recruits and, those top 10 recruits, they're going to like 3 or 4 schools. So it's really been fun to see what Baylor has done, just a total culture change from what they used to be. They've come a long way in really kind of a short time. And Scott Drew, one of the 2 or 3 or 4 best coaches in college, they do it a little bit differently, like some of those blue bloods, but that's why they're successful. It could also be why those teams like Duke and Kentucky were not successful this year. But yeah, just a super deep team. Offensively, defensively, they could beat you both ways. Just the system that Scott Drew runs, the culture, just kind of everything about him. It's like one of the best things that I love about college football, college basketball. It's all about culture. It's all about making guys fit in the system that they run and just kind of accentuating the talents that they bring and complementary talents. Everybody kind of playing off of each other. I saw earlier today, Jared Butler is the betting favorite to be the March Madness most outstanding player. Like, probably not going to be the first name you think of, but then when you think about it, it's like, you know what? Actually, that does make a lot of sense. Like, Baylor could win it all. He's the best player on one of the best teams. And, it's not just him. Davion Mitchell is outstanding. 2 studs could be on the most outstanding tournament team here when it's all said and done. So I love Baylor. I don't know if I'm going to have them win it at all. I'll probably have them get into the Final Four, probably. But it's been fun watching what Scott Drew's been able to do, put his mark on that program. And the Indiana job opened up earlier today. I'm sure Indiana's going to throw piles and piles of money at him to see if they'll leave Waco. But, Baylor, they're going to have to pony up to keep him around, if they want to keep, getting number 1 seeds year in and year out.
Yeah, another coach who's good to go down changing the culture of his program is Brad Underwood over at Illinois, because that team was underachieving the Big Ten for years. This year they have Ayo Dosunmu and Kofi Cockburn both come back after testing the NBA waters. They've been peaking down the stretch, won 14 of the last 15 games, the Big Ten tournament title. I mean, if you're looking for a team other than Gonzaga as a trendy pick to win it all, I think Illinois is going to be that team. Yeah,
I'm in Illinois. I grew up an Illinois fan. They were always really good at basketball. Came close a couple times, Final Four in '89. That 2005 team might be my favorite college basketball team ever. Darren Williams, Dee Brown, Luther Head, Roger Powell, James Augustine. Bruce Weber as the coach. After Bill Self left, we thought, oh boy, here we go. We're going to, regress a little bit. The regression came a couple years after those studs left, but this is the best team since that '05 squad that Illinois had. Like you said, getting those guys back, Ayo and Kofi, probably weren't going to be lottery picks last year. They've certainly helped their cause this year. I'm not really sure how high they're going to go in the NBA draft, but when you talk about college, they're just, they're outstanding. Ayo is so clutch. He's got the Batman mask going now, but Brad Underwood has been phenomenal, as good as advertised, exceeding expectations. It was bad, for a while after the end of the Weber era and the Gross era. That was just, it did not go well. So, no, it's exciting times for Fighting Illini fans. Outside of Gonzaga, hottest team in college basketball, really just blitzed through some great teams. Michigan and Iowa especially, and then was almost kind of toying with Ohio State there for a little bit in the Big Ten championship game. Credit Ohio State. I think Ohio State's a great team in their own right. Kept coming back, but Illinois put them away in overtime. But Oklahoma State being in that bracket with Illinois, it makes me a little nervous. I've talked about how much I really like Cade Cunningham, but that could be a showdown that is one of the best games that we have in March Madness if it comes to that. But yeah, Illinois, they might be the team to beat outside of Gonzaga.
Yeah, right now they're in the Midwest bracket with Oklahoma State. They're gonna be up in the Sweet 16. That would be a hell of a matchup between Cade Cunningham and Ayo Dosunmu. And I mean, for people who have not watched a lot of Cade Cunningham, I feel like, especially considering he's at Oklahoma State and not like at Duke or Kentucky, people didn't see him as much. Like, how you describe his game? I feel like he's a very interesting player to break down.
Yeah, I've been asking a lot of people that same question. It's like he's like a 6'8" point guard. He could do it all. He's not like Zion Williamson. It's like, I don't want to compare anybody to LeBron James, but LeBron is like that 6'8", point forward. Whenever maybe he's a little bit of Grant Hill, even going a little bit further back. So maybe he's got a little Tracy McGrady in his game. Maybe he's got a little Kobe in his game. It's like, God, I hate doing that. Comparing college freshmen to some of the immortals of basketball, but the guy's an all-around versatile talent, 6'8", long, lengthy, shoots a three. He's got a good jumper. He's so young. Like, the sky's the limit for him. But yeah, I mean, those are the kinds of players that you think about when you kind of compare his game to what he's done so far this season.
My personal comparison is I say Grant Hill with better court vision. That's what I think Cade Cunningham really
there you go.
Plays to, because he's a much better passer than Grant Hill was.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw Grant Hill before the injuries, took him out. And, he had 3 years or 4 years. Yeah, 3 years at Duke. Yeah, I think he was one of the first guys that didn't stay all four for K. But, he was, sensational for multiple years at Duke, multiple Final Four runs. Then he comes in the NBA and he's an all-star right away as a rookie. And, then the injuries happened. And he's one of the greatest what-if, cases in NBA history. But this is the kind of guy that Cade Cunningham is. He's going to be the number one pick. He's going to be, a great player for a long, long time. It's just going to be interesting to see where he lands in the NBA and the coaching staff in place and what other players around him. We've seen great players go to just terrible organizations and, they bust. And being a bust is a complicated thing. It's a lot of factors that go into play there. So he goes to he's not going to go to a great situation. Obviously, he's going to a losing team at the top of the lottery. But, if there are a couple players around him, stable coaching staff in place, this guy's going to be good and real good.
Yeah, he is. Let's talk about some of these teams in the field. Obviously, we've talked about a lot of the highlights, but there are some teams I think coming in here are pretty vulnerable to getting picked off early. Who are some teams you were looking at saying, I wouldn't be betting that farm on them getting deep into this tournament?
Man, I touched on Michigan, losing Isaiah Livers, their best player, or at least certainly one of their two best players. Him going down out indefinitely. Maybe he come back at some point during the tournament, but potential second-round game against LSU, who, really gave Alabama everything they could handle in the SEC championship game. They knocked off Arkansas, who was one of the hotter teams in the country as well. Michigan, LSU, potential second-round matchup. That's an interesting one for me. Beyond that, let me think here as I kind of scan the bracket. Oh, speaking of Arkansas, that 3-14 matchup against Colgate. This is going to be an absolute barn burner. First one to 100 is going to win that game. If we're talking big upsets, I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas lost to Colgate. I'm not necessarily going to bet that one, but that's definitely one that, kind of piqued my curiosity when the brackets were coming out in real time. Other than that, Colorado maybe losing to Georgetown. I really liked what Georgetown did in the Big East tournament. Patrick Ewing there coaching his alma mater. Georgetown definitely had some rough years. John Thompson passed away earlier this year. Maybe there's a little bit of I don't want to say team of destiny vibe here because I don't think they're going to go too far. Even if they do beat Colorado, I think they lose to Florida State in their next game. But Colorado is a 5 seed, and I don't know if Colorado is going to be thought to do a whole lot. But that's one of those 12-5 matchups where we know upsets are happening. So that's another one that I've kind of circled on my bracket.
Yeah, I've got a couple of more teams there I think they'll be vulnerable. I think Kansas, obviously, because besides the COVID fact, that they're not very big inside.
Yeah, definitely.
And they look at their matchups potentially second round. You can see seeing Evan Mobley from USC. You could be giving them a problem on the interior. If they get through that, Luka Garza in Iowa waiting in the Sweet 16. That's not an easy road for the Jayhawks.
Yeah, that's a great point about Kansas. One of those teams that got pulled out from the Big 12. And, yeah, it's so crazy, thinking about COVID, when trying to fill out your brackets, like, you never know. They might lose their best player. Like, knock on wood, none of this stuff happens, and everything can be decided with their best teams on the court. But yeah, it's a big variable here when filling out your brackets. We fill out our brackets on March 15th or whatever, and maybe 2 weeks from now somebody gets pulled out because of COVID, and then it drastically changes things there. But yeah, that's a great point for Kansas. We talk about Cade Cunningham, and Jalen Suggs, freshman phenoms, Evan Mobley at USC. That's probably going to be a 2 or 3 pick as well. Near 7-footer, athletic big. He's probably the James Wiseman of this class, but unlike Wiseman, Mobley's actually played a full college season. So, USC is a team that I'm kind of interested in watching. Really, a lot of these Pac-12 teams, the Pac-12, just like in football, the basketball counterparts kind of get shoved to the side. Haven't really had a whole lot of great dominant teams, great dominant players for the better part of the last, several years now. But Evan Mobley, what he's capable of definitely makes USC an interesting team to fill out in your bracket.
Yeah, they do. And you mentioned some of your upsets before. You said Georgetown as a 12-5 candidate for Colorado. Any other upsets you have in mind that you think could be interesting?
Oh, man, really putting me on the spot there. The first thing I do when I fill out my brackets, I look at the 5-12 line. Obviously, that's historically where you're going to see some teams. Tennessee, Oregon State. Oregon State, they won the Pac-12 championship. Tennessee, when Tennessee's good, they're good, and when they're not good, they're not good. Obviously, it's a lot more complicated than that, but it kind of just, you never really know which Tennessee team is going to show up on any given night. I don't think Syracuse is going to upset San Diego State in that 6-11 matchup, although Syracuse, I'm surprised they're even in this tournament. But, let's see here. Who else? Winthrop and Villanova. That's an interesting one. Villanova, they were like a preseason top 3 or 4 or 5 team, something like that. Looked like a number 1 seed early in the season. Then they missed like a whole month because of COVID. So that totally disrupted them. We really don't know what's going to, come from them. They lose, their best player, Connor Gillespie. So Winthrop, that's another interesting one. They always seem to be in the tournament, from the smaller conferences. So don't want to give the little guy any disrespect, but a complete opposite of a little guy, North Carolina. They've really come on strong towards the latter part of the season. I thought they were going to win the ACC tournament. Georgia Tech was just a little bit better than them that night. I think North Carolina in that 8-9 matchup against Wisconsin, I think North Carolina gets past Wisconsin, but then that'll set up an interesting Baylor versus North Carolina game in the second round. North Carolina's got some great bigs, 3 or 4 great, big bodies that could go against Baylor. That's a game that could be interesting. Michigan and LSU in the second round and Baylor, North Carolina in the second round. I'm kind of thinking we're going to see a 1 seed out before the first weekend's over.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. I'll throw one more in the pile here. I think Virginia's in big trouble against Ohio in the 4-13 matchup in that West region because obviously Virginia's whole team's pretty much in quarantine right now. It's like a very low practice time. Plus, Ohio is a very, very good NBA prospect in Jason Preston. And this kid averages 16 a game. He went solid against Illinois earlier this year at 31 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds. They lost by 2 to the Illini in Champaign. And I think very easily Ohio can knock Virginia off in the first round.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by that. And, I don't want to rub salt in the wounds of, for Virginia fans, but we've seen them lose, in big upsets, in the past with UMBC, the first 16 to beat a 1 seed in the first round. So I wouldn't be surprised by that. And this is probably going to be the year where I wait until like the last minute to fill in my bracket just because, And I think it's Tuesday at 6 p.m., something like that, I think is the deadline for all these teams to like meet all the COVID protocols and travel to Indianapolis and all of that and then head into the March Madness bubble. So, you don't get any bonus points for filling in your bracket on Sunday night, Monday morning. But, now is the time to do all the research, study all the point spreads, see where, those 5-12 point, spreads. Hey, if there's a 5-12 matchup and there's just a 3.5 point spread in that one, and maybe that's a game where you want to ride that 12. But yeah, the COVID element is going to be huge this year, and fingers crossed that, we could just get through this, or we could see the finish line ahead of us. But that's a good point about Virginia, Kansas, these teams that had COVID issues, right before the season started. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I also want to give one more game a shot here the first round. If you're Alabama, you're the 2 seed. You're sitting there. If you feel good, you won the SEC. Then you're sitting there. You have to deal with Rick Pitino in the first round. So that's got to be not a lot of fun for Nate Oates.
I was waiting for you to bring up Iona and Rick Pitino. I mean, Rick Pitino, one of the best college coaches of all time. We all know about his baggage and everything like that, but the guy could coach. He knows how to win 5 NCAA tournament teams at 5 different schools. One of, I think, 3 coaches. I think Tubby Smith and Lon Kruger. Definitely Tubby. I got to, if memory serves, I think Lon Kruger is in that boat as well. But, yeah, Iona getting in there. Alabama, tough test. Nate Oates, they've been great all year, especially on the defensive end. But, yeah, great story what Pitino's been able to do. And I don't know, what do you think? Is Pitino going to be one and done at Iona? You think he's going to be is he going to try and be angling for that Indiana job?
I feel like they're going to offer him money for it. From what I've heard of him this year, it seems like he's content to retire at Iona. I don't think he wants to go back to a big school again.
Yeah, that's, not having a personal relationship and not exactly knowing the situation with him. I think, he's won, at Kentucky and Louisville. He's been around the block. I don't think he wants to go into that kind of pressure cooker. I think, Iona welcomed him. They give him that lifeline. And I think he kind of owes it to him to at least stick around for a little while longer. Whether or not he retires there, who knows? But, yeah, hopefully he could stick around there and see what he could build there at Iona.
Yeah, it'll be fun for sure. And I know it's a little early. I know you said you haven't filled the bracket out yet, but if you had to go right now and say, here's my Final Four, what's the gut say?
My gut is telling me Gonzaga coming out of the West. Coming out of the South, I think I like... I think I still like Baylor, even though I kind of teased a North Carolina upset of Baylor. But I like Gonzaga from the West, Baylor from the South. I like Illinois from the Midwest. The East bracket is the toughest one for me. I think Michigan is the most vulnerable one. I like Florida State as a 6 seed, as a 4 seed. I like Texas a little bit as a 3. I don't know. I like Alabama, but I don't know if I like them Final Four, But I think I'm kind of leaning towards Alabama coming out of the East. And then I got Gonzaga and Illinois in the title game. And I'm gonna go with my heart, maybe a little bit over my head, but I got Illinois winning it all.
All right, there you have it. Remember, these are just Patrick's predictions. Don't take them to the bank for your own bracket.
Yeah, there's no liability here. If your bucket is burst into flames Friday afternoon, don't at me on Twitter. I am not personally responsible for your bracket picks.
Yeah, I'm not responsible either, Patrick. Thanks for all the time. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, I'll be follow on social media, keep up what we're doing over at FanSided for the tournament.
Yeah, just follow at FanSided. We'll have tons of great college basketball, March Madness stuff coming out all throughout the week. Some nice features, some nice bracket tips to help you fill out your bracket. Some of the underdogs, some of the upsets, some of the potential Cinderella stories, some of the players to watch, all that good stuff to help you make informed decisions to fill out your brackets. And then, of course, during the games, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, all sorts of great live insight, analysis, highlights, all that great fun stuff. So come join along and follow us on the conversation.
All right, follow FanSided. Patrick, thanks for all the time. I really appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure.